When the reset happens, how long after the reset would banks reset all debt, i.e. mortgages, car loans, credit cards? Am I understanding this correctly, that after the reset, I would pay off all debt with the revalued gold and silver?
So on the first part, as we're going into hyperinflation, they're probably going to, at that point, if we use Mexico as an example, they start to change all of the variable rate contracts. So I can't tell you exactly how long, but probably within like a 9-month period-ish is when they would fully reset all of the contracts. So some of that's going to start as we're in hyperinflation. And the answer is yes. You are understanding that correctly. Probably not silver, because you carry a whole lot more bang for your buck in gold. But absolutely, because when they do that overnight revaluation, they take the fiat money that has really no intrinsic value and they revalue it against gold. And there's that window that we can grab however many ounces of gold that we need to, boom, pay off your mortgage, any fixed rate debt. So yes, you are understanding that right, Robert.
All right, so Gary D asks, I'm 56 years old and would like to cash in my IRA, pay the taxes, and buy physical gold. Since you have done this before,
I have.
Did you ever feel nervous about your decision?
No, not at all, because what I know is that I am holding my retirement money in the absolute safest thing that I can do at this point in time. And that's the direction you have to go in, because the system is falling apart. So you get to safety, and then as the opportunities to convert that gold into income producing assets occurs, then you start to shift that. Now on the other side of this mess, you have your income set for your retirement, and you can't outlive it. So
why do you say you can't outlive it?
Well, you can't. Okay, so when I first became a stockbroker back in the 80s, if you were getting 10% on government bonds, right? So you could put in your principal, and most people did this. They'd put in their principal, and essentially if you had enough, which was substantial because you were getting 10%, you could live off the interest. So we never talked about anybody outliving their IRA or their retirement fund because we were getting enough interest on it.
Right.
But these days, from what I hear, like from my ex-husband's, the feedback that I get from that, quite honestly, his broker said, well, yeah, you have enough to make it till you're 88. Well, what happens if you live past 88, right? Because what you're really doing now, especially in this low interest rate environment, is in order to sustain a reasonable standard of living between the low interest rates and the inflation, is you have to use up your principal. So therefore, depending upon, for most people, what they have, they will more than likely outlive the retirement funds. In our strategy, where you then convert it into, like, say, income producing real estate, right? As long as you're holding on to the real estate and the real estate is generating income for you, why would you sell it? You wouldn't. So then you simply pass it down to your heirs, but you're not outliving that because you're not using up the principal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're saying that after, when the reset happens and you utilize the gold to buy income producing assets, now you're able to sustain through the rest of your life with that.
Exactly, and you don't have to use up the principal.
Got it. All right, so Matthew M. asks, to avoid CBDCs, can't we just all go to the bank and close out our accounts and get cash?
Well, you can at this moment. But will that avoid the CBDCs? If they actually do indeed push that through, which is what they're working so hard on, and that is the only legal tender, no, you can't avoid them, because you're going to have to use that. Number one, you're going to have to take it for salary or however that you're going to generate your money, because everything's got to flow through the system, and you're going to have to use it as a tool of barter. If you hold cash outside of the system, there's only 3 cents, officially, 3 cents worth of purchasing power left on that cash. So when we
From
enter...
the original dollar from 1913.
Correct. So now you threw me off.
Sorry. You say that, though, and a lot of people know what you're talking about because they've been around for a long time. But
Oh, no, I appreciate...
any new people are like, what does she mean? Only 3 cents left of their purchasing power.
Right. So if you hold it in cash, then when we go into, when everybody loses confidence in the currency, which we are in that direction very close, then that cash has absolutely zero purchasing power value. You got to have some for your first line of defense, but after, like if you take a look at Venezuela or Argentina or, any countries that are in hyperinflation mode, the vendors or whoever you're buying your stuff from, unless they're government agencies, frankly, they don't want the cash. In fact, it was Egypt just today that is in their third massive revaluation, not overnight, like 1,000%. And I haven't finished reading the article yet because it just came up this morning. But in Egypt, their currency is now in its third revaluation, I think they said in the last 6 months. Don't hold me to that. You can search that. So when the cash loses value, if you're sitting in it, it's a losing proposition. Now, if you hold gold over here, since that's good money and it holds its purchasing power value over time, and especially when they do that revaluation, now you take a little bit of the gold and you convert it into the CBDCs to buy what you need to buy or pay those bills that you can only do with the legal money of the state, but you're holding your purchasing power's value intact. And you're also protecting whatever wealth you're choosing to leave inside of the system or that you have in cash. I mean, we have the calculations to figure out the most likely amount that you need to recoup any of those losses.
So this one's good. I like this. So Tracy T says, in regard to the CBDCs, we see the problem. What is the solution for stopping them?
Well, there's the main way that you can stop them when you stop and think about how we really vote. We vote with our purses. So if you buy into the fiat system, that's your vote. My vote goes into physical gold and silver that is outside of the system. And then if enough of us make that vote, then they're going to have a hard time pushing the CBDCs through. So that's how we stop them. We come together in community and we take the money that's in the system, we pull it out of the system, and we put it into the only financial asset that runs no counterparty risk, the only one. You stay in counterparty risk, that's your vote.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because you're right in the sense that if everybody, if no one invested in stocks, bonds, bank accounts, put it in gold and silver, it would seem to me, though, that the very next thing would be like, we're just outlawing gold and silver now.
Well, they're probably going to do that. You're absolutely
and then
right
just,
about that.
Force us into CBDCs regardless.
Well, then it depends on the kind of gold and silver that you buy.
Yeah,
because you have to keep that in mind. My uncle had at least 3,000 ounces illegally that he could use in the normal marketplace, even if he had to convert them into the dollars, right? But it was legal for him because he did what the guys that write the laws do. So that's all you got to do.
Yeah, time will tell on that one.
Yes.
All right, so
indeed.
Estella T asks, so if you have a gold coin, how are you going to buy a loaf of bread? Are you going to chip the coin? Are you going to chip some off the coin?
Well, I mean, you could do that, but if I'm going to buy a loaf of bread, number one, I'm not going to do it with gold. I'm going to do it with silver. Number two, I'm going to have a variety of sizes so that whatever my need is, whether it's a loaf of bread or it's even a new property to generate income or whatever, I'm going to make sure, and I have made sure, it's not I'm going to, I have made sure that whatever it is that I need to purchase, I have the right kind of gold and silver to make that purchase. So, and even when you're looking at this, could I cut this watch apart? Sure, I could if I needed to, but I would much rather have a dime, a silver dime, that I could use. So it's always the right tool for the job. It's always the right tool for the job.